Atlanta's latest homeless count is showing an alarming increase in need in our city. New data from Partners for Home shows homelessness in Atlanta increased 6% this year, with more people entering the system for help. These are our neighbors who are in need. CEO Cathryn Vassell joins us now for this conversation. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
6% seems like a really big number to me. Can you talk about what's going into that?
Actually, we think 6% shows that our system is stabilizing over time. We have seen other larger double digit changes in our system over the last 10 years. In fact, since we started this work in 2016, we've seen an overall reduction of 30% of people experiencing homelessness in our system. However, the system is dynamic and homelessness is contingent on market forces. And we know that affordability and the availability of deeply affordable housing is an incredible headwind that we're facing in the homeless system.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, just how much of this is tied to affordability and accessibility here in Atlanta.
Absolutely. Housing affordability and availability of it is the single biggest predictor and driving force of a community's rate of homelessness, both locally here in Atlanta as well as nationally. And so, as we see a continued evaporation of deeply affordable housing in communities in Atlanta that were once deeply affordable, we will continue to see a rise in the number of people coming into our system.
Eviction filings are up in many Atlanta neighborhoods. Are you seeing that people who may have been previously stable and able to afford housing are now really experiencing a lot of issues?
You know, eviction in and of itself is not a direct corollary to homelessness. Many individuals who are evicted wind up finding other solutions in the interim. They may live with family. They may live in a hotel motel. We've seen that data come out of Brian Goldstone's work. And so it might be 2 or 3 years post eviction before an individual or household falls into homelessness. But that said, you know, we did see an increase in inflow into our system. Almost 400 more people became homeless in 2025 than the year prior. And of the, total number of people that came into our system, 73% of them were homeless for the first time. So, a large majority of people that do become homeless in Atlanta have not been homeless before and are now experiencing this, tragedy for the first time.
Yeah, it is a tragedy and it's really difficult. For people who think this is just a downtown issue in downtown Atlanta, what does the data say about all of Metro Atlanta and homelessness?
Well, this is certainly a city and metro-wide problem. I think if we focus just on City of Atlanta geography proper, but if you ask our counterparts in the metro area, in Gwinnett, in North Fulton, in South Fulton, in Cobb County, even places like Clayton County and Gwinnett, Rockdale Newton, they would all say that they've seen increases in the number of people experiencing homelessness. We saw the report that just came out through the Spark initiative that looked at the explosion of numbers of families that are living in hotel motels into Cobb County. So the number of people who are vulnerably housed in our community is staggering. And we've got to collectively work on scaling affordability as a community.
So, looking at a one night snapshot, are there things that you don't feel like just that one point in time metric doesn't fully capture?
Sure, absolutely. And you said it perfectly because it is just one night, it's just a snapshot. So we use a number of other data metrics to evaluate how our system is performing on any given day and throughout the course of a year. So I talked about the total number of people coming into our system. So in 2025, we had almost 9,000 people that touched the homeless system as a whole. Of those, we looked at how many were homeless for the first time, as I already said, and that was 73%. We also look at how many people we're housing year over year. So last year, we housed about 1,500 households, and over the last 10 years, we've rehoused 17,000 households.
Wow.
And of the people we rehouse, then we look at how successful are they in housing? Do they stay in housing and do they exit to permanent destinations? And the good news is that our system performance measures are tracking that 96% of the people we put in housing stay in housing or exit to permanent destinations. So that tells us that housing is the solution to homelessness and that housing is effectively ending a person's homelessness and stabilizing them uh, it, for the long term.
Yeah, that is really good news and a powerful message. Once you get people into housing, it really does help stabilize them. Veteran homelessness dropped 13%, but youth homelessness increased. Can you talk about what's driving those different trends?
Yeah, we've had targeted focus on veteran homelessness for quite some time. We have a project manager on our team, David Mance, who himself is a veteran, and he convenes all of our veteran partners, whether it's individuals who provide shelter for veterans, the Veterans Administration, the Housing Authority, anyone who touches veteran homelessness comes together and meets on a regular basis. We actually track and manage a veteran by name list. So we know everybody in our system who is a veteran who's experiencing homelessness. We track length of time from identification to housing. And then we're working to rally all of the veteran housing resources together. So we believe those reductions in veteran homelessness is a direct result of that coordination, and not just the coordination, but then the infusion of investments to support rehousing veterans. There is a tremendous amount of investment from the VA as well as through HUD for homeless vets. And so we actually think that's a proof point that we can use to replicate for other subpopulations like young adults, like families, like the chronically homeless. For youth, we saw a slight uptick. I think that increase resulted in just a handful of young adults experiencing homelessness. We have a similar targeted focus on young adults right now, and we're working to create more investments for youth who are homeless. They are incredibly vulnerable, as you could imagine, ages 18 to 24. Imagine being homeless at that age. And many young adults are exiting out of the foster care system, out of the juvenile justice system. So they're particularly vulnerable. So we are working to create more housing solutions for young adults.
And looking at the data set there, 85% of those counted identify as Black. What does this say about the inequities in housing and economic stability in Atlanta?
Yeah, it tells us that homelessness is racialized. That we have a gross disproportionality of people experiencing homelessness who identify as Black, African American, or African. And we know that's directly tied to longstanding issues of racism, discrimination, systemic, and in across our infrastructure in our city and across our country. So we believe that that disparity is a direct result of those things. We're working on that. We actually have, as a part of our strategic plan, some targeted goals around reducing disparities. So we have launched our JEDI standards: justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. We've launched those standards across our entire provider workforce and invited our partner providers to adopt those JEDI standards. And it's a comprehensive set of standards that helps us look at issues of equity, diversity, inclusion, and justice across multiple domains to ensure that we're keeping that issue front and center, and that we're supporting and providing training and technical support to our providers to also be able to stay laser focused using an equity lens to address this issue.
What do you think residents of Atlanta should understand about homelessness that people might not get?
I think the one thing that people need to understand is that homelessness is a housing problem, full stop. Of course, there are individual factors that drive the likelihood of somebody becoming homeless. For example, mental health issues or addiction issues. But over time, our data continues to support the fact that roughly about 25 to 30% of the total population experiencing homelessness on any given night report a mental health or addiction issue. And really, the overwhelming majority are people like you and I who have fallen on hard times, whose income does not match the ability to pay what the rent is demanding, who have more month than money, um, and need support in finding housing that they can afford. So, generally speaking, the issue and the challenge that we're faced with as a community is ensuring that we're securing housing not just for teachers and firefighters, although we need affordable housing for those heroes in our community, but we also need to ensure we're prioritizing housing for deeply, deeply affordable and low income people.
For viewers who want to help, what does meaningful support look like?
There's some tangible things that people can do. I think certainly get out there and vote. That is incredibly important. And meaningful in terms of how policy impacts our work on day to day. Another tangible way in your local community is something we call NIMBYism, not in my backyard. We want there to be more what we call YIMBYs, yes, in my backyard. And so we are out there developing supportive housing. We've brought 1,100 units online for people who are chronically homeless. And one of the challenges we face when we go to develop new units is resistance in local communities to housing for people who are homeless. So we want people to get educated about that. We want them to understand what it means for your unhoused neighbor to now become your housed neighbor. We think that's a better solution, and that ultimately it will improve your neighborhood, that it will increase your property values, and that it goes an incredibly long way, and provides far more benefits than leaving somebody homeless who is currently your neighbor on the street. So, more support and encouragement, I think, for the development of affordable housing in your community and in your neighborhoods.
Really great information. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.